think you did this to me last time. You basically gave my whole speech in your introduction. Thank you, David. So, in 2002, I moved to New York City. It was the first time that I'd lived outside my hometown, let alone New Zealand, and it was the first time that I'd ever been to New York. I went to that city sight unseen with no job and really no concept of what I was moving towards. And as I look back, that step into the unknown was a step off the career conveyor belt that I'd found myself on. I'd done all the right things. I'd played by all the rules. I'd worked hard through school, and I'd graduated in classic type A style with a commerce degree and a law degree with honors. My overachieving led me to Russell McVeigh, where I worked as a corporate lawyer for 4 years. And I really loved the practice of law. I loved working with my clients. I loved negotiating on their behalf. I loved the storytelling that was involved in turning a commercial deal into a contract. I was the dork that enjoyed drafting contracts. But I have to say, it all seems so dull now. But it really was an incredible career. It was a well-paid job, it was prestigious, and there was really no reason that I should want for much more. I was climbing the corporate ladder law style. I was doing all the right things to be on partner track right up to the day that I realized that I thought that there was something else for me out there in life. There was something more than the very clear path that lay in front of me. And I can't tell you the exact reason that I knew New York was the place for me to be. But I can tell you that magic happened, well, eventually, when I moved there. And then the clicker. So involved in the storytelling, I'm forgetting about the slides. So clear, steady paths is what we think we should aspire to. We learn this from infants. We learn that life is full of progressive, measured steps forward. We're told to pick up our toys and we get a cookie or a biscuit and we feel good and we move on. We go to school and we're taught that we study hard, we sit the exam and we pass the test. There's this progression that we're moving forward, that we're taught, that we learn. And it's not maybe until we graduate, and I remember this, that you start to think maybe there's something else out there, maybe there's something other than the straight line to guide me forward. But we get quickly sucked back into recruiting events and doing the jobs that we think that we should be doing. The straight line feels predictable. It feels comfortable. It feels safe. The straight line offers life in small, measured doses. And while it's not all roses and lollipops, it's a lower risk strategy. But it's dangerous. It's dangerous because most of us have something buried deep within us. That thought, that nagging voice in our heads of what if? What if I did? And what if you did do that? What if you do step out and take a risk? And think about it, we're a country of immigrants. Whether your ancestors sailed halfway across the world to get here risking everything, including their lives, or you or your parents recently immigrated here, we are the progeny of great risk takers. Risk takers in search of the promise of a better life. We are from people who knew that playing it safe was not for them. So you want to be on the cover of Fast Company? You have an idea that you think might transform industry? We exist in the world where companies are being helmed by 21-year-olds and being acquired by Facebook for $3 billion. And if you want to create something new, something that hasn't existed before, you need to discard the promise of the linear line, because exceptional lies at the end of the squiggly line. The squiggly line is the surrealist, Dali-esque promise or offer of possibility. It is the offer of your dream, that idea in your head that maybe, just maybe, I could do something remarkable. The squiggly line is the stuff of legacies. But this is not for the faint of heart. The squiggly line is a slippery devil. On the squiggly line, one can expect to go backwards and sideways well before going forward. The squiggly line is full of unexpected twists and turns and resembles much more a roller coaster than it does a project plan. And it is my belief that mastery of the squiggly line requires 3 things: that you listen to your intuition, that you do the things that make you uncomfortable, and that you maintain momentum and keep moving, always. Intuition, deliberate discomfort, and momentum. Intuition, deliberate discomfort, momentum. So let's break these down. Now, I live in Boulder, Colorado, the land of woo-woo, metaphysical, get your yoga on and listen to the universe, but I'm not going to go there. I was trained as a lawyer, and I like science and fact as much as the next gal. And it's fairly well established that intuition is knowledge. Not I read it in a book, deductive logic, structured thinking, but knowledge often revealed as a feeling. Knowledge that comes from processing by the subconscious. The day I realized that I didn't want to be a partner in a law firm, there was a lot of information that I distilled to get to that point. I knew what it was like to be a lawyer. I knew what it looked like to be a partner. I was beginning to understand who I was, and I was reading a lot about the tech sector in the US. And I was obsessed with Sex and the City, but I'm sure that had nothing to do with me wanting to move to New York. But something deep inside of me knew. It wasn't a thoughtfully constructed, well-researched conclusion, and I really couldn't explain it to anyone else, especially my mother. But it was so clear to me that this was what I needed to do. And Einstein talks about intuition. Steve Jobs talked about intuition. If you look under the hood of most people who've pushed beyond accepted boundaries, they understand the role that intuition plays. And intuition may be the most powerful information that you have access to. Intuition is deciding that you need to move to New York from New Zealand even though you have never been there, and from that move alone, having your world change. And boy, did my world change. Since leaving New Zealand, I've had the most incredible squiggly journey. I've been part of 2 startups that have both had fantastic exits. I was fortunate enough to be part of the founding team of Massive, and we were the first company to put advertising into video games dynamically, so we could serve ads into any game that was internet connected. We created that in 2003, and we sold it to Microsoft in 2006, and I can almost guarantee there will never be a squigglier journey than I experienced at Massive. After working with Microsoft for 3 years, I then co-founded Victors and Spoils, an advertising agency built on the principles of crowdsourcing. We saw that all of this user-generated content that was existing on the web could be used to help solve brands' creative briefs. So we curated a high-caliber crowd, and we used that creative talent to help solve our clients' advertising problems, on demand and at a much better price point than other advertising agencies could deliver. We sold a majority stake to Havas in 2012, Havas being one of the largest holding companies in the world. Both of these startup endeavors were ignited by moments of intuition, a moment of deep knowledge about what I and the companies that I helped to create needed to do. The first step on the squiggly line is to follow that intuition. But do you have the courage to follow it? Because here's the news flash. Intuition is not special. What separates the special is whether you have the capacity to act on your intuition. Only the brave shall prosper. So enter deliberate discomfort. To truly ignite the flame of intuition, you will find that you need to step into the unknown and do something that likely feels incredibly uncomfortable. This is the big leap. And it takes guts, often of monumental proportion. When the plane took off from my hometown of Wellington and we bumped our way outside of the city, I remember looking out the window and thinking, what the hell have I just done? I left my career, my friends, my family, my safety all behind. I knew nothing of the city that I was bound or the future that I was heading to. I doubted myself at that point more than I ever have. If I could have turned back in that moment, I probably would have. But that's what the big leap requires. It's a commitment from which there is no turning back. And a belief, a steadfast belief, and a possibly insane belief in the future to which you are bound. And you've heard these stories even today, when people are recounting their path to success. They're all referencing a point where they made a pivotal course change, or maybe multiple pivotal course changes in their lives. A pivot that ultimately leads them to success. Once you make the big leap, the ultimate moment of discomfort, you must continue to push yourself into the uncomfortable. This is the daily work. In response to every situation, every potential decision fork, step into discomfort. This is the work that gets extraordinary results. Soren Kierkegaard was widely considered to be the first existentialist philosopher, and he wrote that because it's possible to create one has anxiety. One would have no anxiety if there were no possibility whatever. Creating, actualizing one's possibilities always involves destroying the status quo, destroying old patterns within oneself, progressively destroying what one has clung to from childhood, and creating new and original forms and ways of living. If one does not do this, one is refusing to grow, refusing to avail himself of his possibilities. One is shirking his responsibility to himself. Powerful stuff, right? One would have no anxiety if there were no possibility whatever. So are you feeling anxious? I am constantly. I read Kierkegaard shortly after first presenting Squiggly Line, and I felt like I was hit over the head with it. I thought, this is the reason for the low level of nausea that follows me around everywhere I go. Because we are creating something new when we embark on the Squiggly Line, we have necessary anxiety from that process. But of the three tenets to the Squiggly Line, momentum, I believe, is the easiest and the hardest of the terms to synthesize. It's easy to grasp the concept of staying in motion, but I think the hard thing to understand is what that truly means in practice, especially when I say to you that action doesn't necessarily mean doing. My now husband is an artist. He makes large-scale sculptures out of metal. One day he mentioned to me that he thinks he spends more time standing back and looking at the work than he does up close welding. What an idea! That we might realize there is momentum and progress in reflection. That we might learn to sometimes not busy ourselves with tasks to feel like we're making progress. Momentum becomes critical because it allows you to navigate quickly through the backwards and sideways. It allows you to see when things are not working or quickly establish when they're not. And the classic language that we use in startups are momentum words: pivot, fail fast, beta, MVP. Rewriting your financial projections, setting KPIs for your team, creating a detailed project plan. These are all things that may be important for planning, but they are not momentum creators, and they're certainly not useful if you might not be in business in 6 months. They are activity, but they're not action. And anything other than action will distract you from the important decisions that you need to make, and worse, they might get you stuck. Massive was an exercise in creating momentum. Massive started life as something very different to advertising and video games. We were back-end technology to help software programs talk to each other, again with the dull. We had nothing to do with video games and nothing to do with digital media. And the company was stalling out. We had a lot of people doing their jobs, but we were not going anywhere. We recognized that something had to change, and over a period of time we decided to turn our focus onto video games. Intuition, followed with a lot of negotiations with our VCs and a ton of strategy. From there we took a big leap and we set to work. We recalibrated the team, we minimized our costs, we got smaller office space, we started building a new product, and we went out on the road and talked to clients. We were focused, we were excited, we had passion and a new vision. We were energized around a new goal. We were changing it up, and we had momentum for the first time since I'd encountered the company. And often the Squiggly Line puts up nothing but brick walls. Bad day after bad day, with no sideways, let alone forwards in your sight. How do you navigate out of that? What are you going to do when you reach that dead end or roadblock? Let alone frustrating, it can be downright demoralizing. And if this is starting to sound a little like a Joseph Campbell-esque quest, I think it is a journey. With battles, intense self-doubt, massive self-reflection, and angst. It is my own journey to Mordor. I have learned so much about myself on this path. When you get knocked back day after day, you get resilient fast, and you must be resilient. And I blogged recently about having a bad day. It was just a funding frustration, nothing out of the ordinary. But multiple people called me and emailed me checking that I was okay, which really surprised me because this is normal to me. But it also led to my follow-up blog post, even rock stars have bad days. Because even Lady Gaga falls off her heels from time to time. The point is that the squiggly line is a process and you cannot expect to flatten it out. You can only know how to successfully navigate it. I launched Broadly at the start of the year and it was about as squiggly as it gets. Why Broadly? Because the one constant for me and my squiggly escapades have been the people that have supported me through the good times and the bad. The one thing that's truly carried me through all my experiences as an entrepreneur has been my network. And not my Rolodex, not my LinkedIn account. This is not my network. These are people that I know. My network are the people that I can call when I'm stuck on a problem and talk it through with them in the knowledge that it won't go any further. My network, thank you, Greg Cross, tell me to come stay with them when I'm in town on business. Where is he? Can't even find him. My network are the people who, when I need help, introduce me to the highest caliber of their network, because I would do the same for them. These are the people I talk to for a fresh perspective when I meet a brick wall, when my anxiety levels are out of control, or I need a sounding board for a wacky idea. My network is my power-up. They are my spinach. Networks are effectively force multipliers on the squiggly path. Force multipliers are tools that allow you to produce a greater output without significantly increasing effort. So power tools, GPS, great team morale are all force multipliers, and so are your networks. My network are the people who make introductions saying, oh my God, you two have to meet, you will just love each other, and wait till you hear what Claudia is working on. And then usually say something embarrassingly nice about me, and of course extremely true. My network, I came to realize, is how I make anything happen. And it's not just me helping them, or it's not just them helping me, it's that they're connecting me to their network, and then they're connecting me to their network. This is the power of the trusted network. So we set out to digitize that, creating an app that we plan to form the backbone of a powerful platform, allowing us to connect to our trusted network and somewhat en masse tell them what we need help with, and in turn go and help our networks with their help requests. Broadly.com. Now, I won't go into all of the squiggly detail of our launch and continued journey, but suffice to say, our launch was covered by Fast Company. We're actually on homepage because we were so searched at the time, and also Huffington Post, which was awesome. Our Twitter stream went nuts, which was fantastic. The app crashed for multiple people, not so awesome. Europe didn't work properly because our servers were not localized and we had the same problem in New Zealand. Shit. Our tech co-founders got really busy on their own work and had to quit the project, F word. I had multiple offers of funding, which was fantastic, but I was also fundraising for another company at the time and I just about keeled over. And those were just the squiggly highlights, and it continues. Ultimately, what the squiggly line does is give you permission to keep going. Bad days suddenly have context and feel like part of the process, almost necessary. We learn not to get stuck on them, not to dwell on them, not to dwell on what went wrong, but where we might find that right next step to take. Because the truth of the squiggly line is that the goalpost, the finish line, is not likely clear until you reach it. You're moving towards something with intention, but the exact image of what you're creating may not be clear. It's kind of like if you were to put a jigsaw puzzle together with all of the pieces turned upside down and no picture on the box. Your job is to figure out the one thing you can do next, the smartest decision you can make in this moment, and in the next, and then the next. It's not one squiggle. This is not a one-time effort. It is squiggle after squiggle after squiggle. Apply the formula: intuition, deliberate discomfort, and momentum. Does that first step scare you? Is what your gut's telling you to do just a little terrifying, uncomfortable? Good. Doing the things that scare you, the things that are uncomfortable, people won't predict that. Be a little crazy, wacky, out there. The more people can't anticipate your next move, the bigger gap you'll create between you and your competitors. Push into what scares you. Cultivate deliberate discomfort. You're creating. You're not going to get to exceptional by playing it safe. And if you want to be remarkable, stop being busy. Busy isn't momentum. Busy gets the lawn mowed, the laundry done, the kids to soccer. You want action, not acting. Momentum gets you through the backwards and the sideways, beyond the potential fail points. Momentum gets you to the next squiggle, so you can once again apply the formula. Intuition, deliberate discomfort, momentum. What is the next step, the one next step that I should take? So whether you're an author, a business person, a scientist, a musician, a parent, a student, or an employee, if you want to do something exceptional, something that hasn't been done before, you need to embrace the squiggly line. Listen to your intuition. Do the things that you're afraid of and keep moving. Don't stop. And I can promise you success. I just cannot tell you what that will look like. Thank you.